All right, so remember, the directions of your test is not going to say exactly what you need to do. It's just going to say simplify, and you'll have to know. Well, when there's nothing being done regardless of adding or subtracting, then we just need to see if we can simplify this fraction as if we could 2 over 4. So we need to factor first. So we can draw our x. This is a 1, so 1 times negative 48 is negative 48. The negative 2 drops. So 8 and 6 multiply to 48 and have a difference of 2. And since this is negative, the 8 is negative. So the numerator factors out to x minus 8 times x plus 6. All right, then we need to factor out the denominator. So we draw our x. This is a 1. 1 times 24 is 24. The 11, negative 11 drops. Numbers that multiply to 24, and since this is positive, they have to be the same sign, and that add to 11 are 8 and 3. And since it's a negative 11 they add to, they both have to be negative, so it's over top of 1, because it's the x squared has a 1 in front. So it's x minus 8 times x minus 3. All right, now we look to cross out like factors, so x minus 8 and x minus 8 cancels. So our final answer after we reduce is x plus 6 over x minus 3. And then stating our restrictions, x cannot equal to 8 or 3. All right, now on to the next question. All right, same thing here. We need to go ahead and factor out. So when we do our numerator, 3x cubed plus 6x squared minus 48x minus 96. First thing we always need to look for is GCF, and all of these are divisible by 3, the numbers, so we can factor out the 3, and we're left with x cubed plus x cubed plus 2x squared minus 16x minus 32. And now since there's 4 terms, we have to factor by grouping, so I'm just going to highlight this so I don't forget about it. And now we're going to factor by grouping, so it becomes x cubed plus 2x squared. Always we add in between, so negative 16x minus 32. So we can factor out an x squared here, so we're left with x plus 2. We can factor out a negative 16 here, so we're left with x plus 2. And now it's x squared minus 16 times x plus 2. And since this is a binomial that we can factor again, we can take the square root of each, and it factors out to x plus 4 and x minus 4. So now we need to write all of our factors, so it's 3. And then x plus 4 times x minus 4, and then times the remaining factor of x plus 2, all over top of. And then we need to factor this one out. So remember, first thing we always look for is our GCF. Well, all of these are divisible by 6, so we can factor out the 6, and we're left with x squared minus 2x minus 8. So then we can draw our x. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. The negative 2 drops. 4 and 2 multiply to 8 and have a difference of 2. And since this is negative 2, it needs to be negative 4 divided by 1. And now remember, we can't forget all of our factors, so we can't forget that 6. So this factors out to 6 times x minus 4 times x plus 2. And now we cancel out any of our like factors. So 3 goes into 6 twice, so that is now a 2. The x minus 4 cancels, the x plus 2 cancels, so we're just left with x plus 4 over top of 2 over top of 2. And then we have to say what x cannot equal. So what would make this equal to 0 is a positive 4, and what would make this equal to 0 is a negative 2. All right, that is it for this problem. All right, now we're not just simplifying, we're asked to add and subtract. So we're asked to add here. So now we just need to, first thing we need to do is we need to identify our denominators. Are they the same? And since these are exactly the same, we can just go ahead and add our numerators. So there's no other x squared, so we will just have x squared. Negative 7x plus positive 3x is going to be negative 4x, and negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. And it's all over top of x squared plus 7x plus 10. All right, now we need to go ahead and factor everything because we need to see if there's anything we can cancel out. So x squared minus 4x minus 12. Well, 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. The negative 4 drops. Numbers that multiply to 12 and have a difference of 4 are 6 and 2. And since this is negative, our 6 is negative. So our numerator factors out to x minus 6 over, or times x plus 2. And then our denominator will factor out. We have x squared plus 7x plus 10. Well, the 1 times 10 goes here. The 7 goes in the top. Numbers that multiply to 10 to add to 7 are 5 and 2. And since this is positive, they're both positive. So it factors out to x plus 2 times x plus 5. And now we can go ahead and cancel out any like factors. So x plus 2 gets canceled. And our final answer is just x minus 6 over x plus 5. And our restrictions, x can't be negative 5 and it can't be positive or negative 2. Right, now we're asked to subtract, and when we're subtracting, first thing we have to do is look at our denominators and say, are they the same? Well, x plus 1 and x squared minus 1 are not the same, so that means we're going to go ahead and have to factor these. Well, x plus 1 can't factor out at all, so it's just going to remain x plus 1. And x squared minus 1, we can take the square root of each. Square root of x squared is x, square root of 1 is 1, so this factors out to x plus 1 times x minus 1. All right, now remember, I said if you have different colors, use your different colors. So we're going to highlight x plus 1 in yellow, and I'll highlight x minus 1 in green. Right, then that allows for us to see a little bit clearer as to what we're missing. So here we have the factors x plus 1. Here we have the factors x plus 1 and x minus 1. So we have yellow in both, and in here we have a green, and we don't have a green here, so that means we're missing our green factor. So we need to multiply it by x minus 1 over x minus 1. And since this is not an equation, we're not trying to get rid of our fractions. We can't clear our fractions out unless it is an equation. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and use our FOIL. So we'll do x times 2x gives me 2x squared. X times 4 gives me plus 4x. Negative 1 times 2x gives me minus 2x. And negative 1 times 4 gives me minus 4. So this will simplify to 2x squared plus 2x minus 4 all over top of x minus 1 times x plus 1. And since now we know that they have the same denominator, or I'll just write it out. So x squared minus 2x minus 7 over top of x plus 1 times x minus 1. So now we're going to go ahead and we can write these on the same numerator. So it'll be 2x squared plus 2x minus 4 minus, remember I always told you guys to write it like this, as it might be a little bit easier for you to make sure that you don't forget to distribute that negative to every single number. So now we need to go ahead and distribute the negative sign. So this will then turn to a minus x squared, a positive 2x, and a positive 7. So when we add them, we will get 2x squared minus x squared gives me just a positive x squared. 2x plus 2x gives me plus 4x. Negative 7 plus 7 gives me plus 3, all over top of x minus 1 times x plus 1. And now we need to go ahead and factor this x squared plus 4x plus 3 out and see, can it factor? And if it can we cancel anything? Well, 1 times 3 is 3, 4 goes here. Numbers that multiply to 3 and add to 4 are 3 and 1. Divide each one by that 1 again. So then this factors out to x plus 1 times x plus 3, and it's over top of x minus 1 times x plus 1. And now we can go ahead and cancel out our x plus 1s, and this will give us a final answer of x plus 3 over x minus 1, and x cannot be a positive 1 or a negative 1. All right, now when we multiply or divide, remember I said in this case you have to factor everything first. So before we do anything, unless it's division, we're going to keep, change, flip, but we need to factor everything. We can't cancel anything out without factoring. So the first one, we have x squared minus x minus 6. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. The negative 1 drops, so 3 and 2 multiply in 6 and have a difference of 1. Since this is negative, or 3 is negative, so this factors out to x minus 3 times x plus 2. Then the next one, we have x squared plus 8x minus 20. So this, we have 1. 1 times negative 20 is negative 20. 8 drops. Numbers that multiply in 20 have a difference of 8, or 10 and 2. Since it's positive, our 10 is positive, so that means our 2 has to be negative. And they're over top of the 1 since that's a 1. So it's x plus 10 times x minus 2 times x squared plus 14x plus 40. Here we have 1 times 40 gives me 40. The 14 drops to 14. Numbers that multiply to 40 and add to 14 are 10 and 4. We divide by 1 since this is 1, so it's x plus 10 times x plus 4. And then the last one that we have, 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. So the 2 factors out first. We're left with x squared minus 2x minus 3. So we draw our x. This 1 gets multiplied to the negative 3. The negative 2 drops. Numbers that multiply to 3 and have a difference of 2, just like, multiply to 3 and have a difference of 2, so that'll be 3 and 1. Since this is negative, or 3 is negative, we divide by 1 since this number is 1. So it factors out to 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 1. And now we need to cancel out any like factors. So x minus 3's cancel, x plus 10 cancel. And now we're left with our factors. So our numerator we have to multiply. So x times x gives me x squared. X times 4 gives me plus 4x. 2 times x gives me plus 2x, so it'll be plus 6x. And 2 times 4 will give me plus 8. Our denominator we do not have to multiply, so it's x minus 2 times x plus 1, and don't forget the 2 out front. And now our restrictions, x cannot equal to negative 10, to positive 2, to positive 3, and to negative 1. So remember, for this problem, when we have a complex fraction, this division bar means divide. So we need to go ahead and just divide by 3x minus 9 over top of 6x plus 18. So then we need to keep change flip, so it's x squared minus 9 over top of 2x squared plus 10x plus 8, multiply because we need to change it, and then we need to flip it, so it's 6x plus 18 over top of 3x minus 9. Right, now we need to go ahead and factor all these since we're multiplying. So x squared minus 9, we can take the square root of each, so that will factor to x plus 3 times x minus 3. Here we can do 2x squared plus 10x plus 8. So now we can go ahead and we can factor out the GCF of 2. We're left with x squared plus 5x plus 4. So we can draw our x. 1 times 4 gives me 4. The 5 drops. Numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 5 are 4 and 1. We divide by 1 since this is 1 here. So it's 2 times x plus 4 times x plus 1. Right? Now, and these two, they're easy. All we have is a GCF, so it's 6. We're left with x plus 3. And this one, we have a GCF of 3 as well, 3, and we're left with x minus 3. So we can cancel out our x minus 3. Here we can cancel out the 2 and the 3 go into 6, because 2 times 3 is 6, so they cancel that out completely. And this is what we're left with, but now we need to go ahead and multiply. So we can multiply x times x gives me x squared. X times 3 gives me plus 3x. 3 times x gives me another plus 3x, so that gives me plus 6x. And 3 times 3 gives me 9, all over top of x plus 4 times x plus 1. And then to state our restrictions, x can't be negative 4, it can't be negative 1. And remember, when we're doing a division, we need to look at both our numerator and our denominator, so it can't be negative 3 or positive 3. Right, now whenever we're solving rational equations, now we have an equation, so that's the key thing. You have to be able to identify these are equations. Right, so we can do things a little bit different here. But when it's two fractions that's equal to each other, we can just cross multiply. So it's 5 times x plus 5 is equal to 8 times x minus 9. So we can go ahead and distribute. So it's 5x plus 25. And we can distribute this one as well. So it's 8x minus 72. We need to move all of our x's to one side. So we'll move the 8x to the left side. And we'll move our value, our constants to the other side. So it will give me negative 3x is equal to negative 97. And then we divide each one by negative 3. And that means x is equal to 97 over 3. It can't reduce, and that's it. We would say x cannot equal to 9 and negative 5, and that is our answer. All right, now when we look at our denominators, and it's not, or an equation, still an equation, and it's not just one fraction equal to the other, so we have to look at all of our denominators, and we need to factor them. So this factors to m times m minus 1. Then we have a denominator of m, and this one factors out to m times m minus 1 as well. And remember, whenever we're trying to figure out our least common multiple or least common denominator, we need to use each factor once, especially when it has a variable. So we're going to use this m, and that's going to cancel out these m's, because we've already used it. And here we have m minus 1, so we're going to use that one as well, and it's going to cancel these out. So now we used all of our factors, so everything gets multiplied by m times m minus 1. M times m minus 1. M times m minus 1. And since these two factor out to m times m minus 1, these are going to actually cancel completely, because the m minus 1s will cancel and the m, so we're left with just 1. Here the m cancels, so we're left with 1 times m minus 1, which is just plus m minus 1. And here we're going to cancel these out as well, so it's equal to 5. Well, 1 minus 1 is 0, so we just get m is equal to 5. And then we would say m cannot equal to 0 and 1. All right, now we're on to the last problem. Here we still have more than one fraction on one side, so it's still kind of similar to the other one. But the difference now is our denominators are 4, 3, and this is understood to be over 1. So now we need to look for our least common multiple between 4 and 3. So we can write out all their multiples. 8, 12, 16, 20, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. And we look and see what is the smallest number that they both multiply into. And that would be 12. So our least common multiple is 12. So everything is multiplied by 12. So now when we multiply this, the 4 goes into 12 3 times, so we're left with 3 times x minus 4, so it will be 3x minus 12. And here, the 3 goes into the 12 4 times, so we're left with 4 times x, so plus 4x, and we're left with 6 times 12, which is 72. All right, now we'll go ahead and combine. 3x plus 4x is 7x. We'll add over the 12 to the other side. So we get 7x is equal to 84. We divide each side by 7, and x is then equal to 12. And just make sure you stay, there are no restrictions since these are numbers and not variables. Anything that we plug into x will work because we can never get 0 as a denominator. So there are no restrictions and just x is equal to 12. All right, that is it for this video. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a message.